you so much for coming for our industrial AI breakfast today. And before we start, I particularly want to thank Merantix for hosting this event and the series. If you signed up, you saw that originally Paul, who's head of AI for Merantix, also would have joined this panel, but sadly he's a bit under the weather. I'm actually too, if you hear my voice, but I hope it's not too bad. And that's why, luckily, Ceyhun volunteered to jump in. And I think that's now, maybe you want to start to shortly introduce yourself. And
yeah, sure. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Jay, co-founder at TextCortex, as you can also see on the t-shirt. We are, as a company, we are making knowledge-based AI co-pilots. We started around 2021, and now until we are still working. We have around millions of B2C customers and also B2B customers coming in now. So basically that's it. And I'm the technical co-founder, basically.
And it's, I think, great to have Ceyhun because I don't know so many people who are so great machine learning engineers. And I think I also used to work as a software engineer, but I think it's great to really have you. And but I will actually stop talking so much and like hand it over to Nazanin. Do you want to shortly introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for joining the session. So my name is Nazanin, originally from Iran. Studied computer science, bachelor, master's, PhD, dropped out. Went into development, loved it, stayed there for 15 plus years, worked obviously in Tehran, and then moved to London and Berlin 14 years ago as a tech woman. Yeah, decided to go back to Iran 2 times with the dream of a better world for the nation, which is still remains a big dream. The first company failed that I built. The second one took off, became the biggest female-led startup of the country, and filed for IPO last year. Given the political situation, obviously listing has stopped, but having a German husband, we had to flee the country last year. March 2023, back to Germany. I was already doing angel investments for a couple of years, decided to change the side, moved to the VC side, started as an advisor with EQT Ventures, and joined them full-time as of an investor in a B2B software team focusing on AI companies. So a little bit like what I do, I focus from an infrastructure layer up to a super application layers and startup in the stack. And well, EQT Ventures is also one of the biggest funds out of Europe, early stage fund, with the current fund being 1.1 billion. Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. Very happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. I'm Sven. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of LiveEO, as you can also see on my t-shirt, on my sweater. Yeah, very easy to remember which companies we belong to. You still need to have a EQT sweater or something like that. Exactly. I co-founded LiveEO, which also received investment from DTCF, the fund Jonas is working at. What we do is we have built an AI platform which analyzes satellite data and translates satellite images into actionable insights. And on top of that platform, we've built 3 vertical applications, 2 in the infrastructure space, 1 in the supply chain space with customers like Deutsche Bahn, electrical grid operators, pipeline operators all across the globe, and now supply chain companies.
That's super cool.
Yes, I think so as well. No, but
yeah, and I think with that we actually have the perfect panel for today because like Nazanin is like the AI investor, Ceyhun is like the CTO, the AI CTO, you're the AI CEO. But maybe to shortly explain how we had this idea, we were like thinking a bit, okay, if AI, like be it like classical AI, like computer vision, or now generative AI, if it really has the potential to transform all kind of industries, why hasn't it happened yet? And why is it maybe taking so slow? And that was a bit like our core motivation. And maybe to start off, like, the idea was that we go a bit more from the high level to more like the particular questions to the more technical questions and applications. And maybe to start off, so like to think about like the really high level, like AI in general, do you think we are in a bubble? And do you think like this is like maybe counterbalanced that right now, at least in Germany, we seem to be also a bit in a crisis for industry? Like if you look at Volkswagen, their sales in China plunged like I think 60% last year. So like, yeah, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you feel about the situation, kind of?
Who should start?
Yeah, I think just whoever.
Okay. Well, it's definitely a mixed bag, just the amount of questions you've answered. Maybe we don't gonna solve the German economical crisis right now here at on the panel, but maybe starting with the first point. I don't know, like, is it a bubble? Isn't it? The question is like, do we gonna achieve the big promises all these companies are raising with, right? And if we really look at it, at least from my point of view, we see obviously a lot of investments on the LLM side and on the vision side and on specific applications, but I don't think that we have a general bubble with AI, right? I don't think that really the expectations are too high in a lot of areas, right? And I think, like, maybe just to make it short, to not extend this panel for too long, already with the first question, I think, like, the main question is why don't we see the adoption is just because it's super early, right? And like, we have such a big problem with inertia. I mean, we are selling to big companies, we are selling to big electrical grid operators, big quasi-governmental organizations, and small changes within these organizations take years, take sometimes decades. So I think, like, it's not that we not seeing a lot of implementations of AI on the shop floor in the real processes right now because they don't work. I think it's just too early and we don't see them yet because of this inertia.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, Nazanin, with EQT, I think you invest all over the world. So it's your view is not only limited to Germany, but to Europe and even the US. How do you think about this?
So if we look at it from a macro perspective, so what do we see? So we see how much the technology has developed and what are we having as a technical, basically, capability. And then you look at the other spectrum of the companies or the services that you can provide. So if we look at as enterprise or industry at the end of the basically funnel, and then the technology that you're having, what do you have to do to actually be able to get the most out of Gen AI or the new technology? The reality is like what we see or what the reports are actually predicting, the most value at this very moment from the AI technology is going to come from a couple of sectors, which is sales, marketing, customers, customer operations, and R&D. This is 75% of the value of AI is going to be created in these areas. Despite the fact that last year they actually predicted saying that it is going to go into industry, and now they have changed the report. The reason being is like what you also explained, you know, what do we have for AI to be effective? We need a proper infrastructure. We need, you know, enterprises are generally risk averse. They don't have a data, which is basically the fundamental need for the AI to actually operate properly. And then when you want to go, like we look at a lot of AI industrial company, we even discussed a couple of them, right? So they are pretty slow, or the enterprises are so worried about actually applying them, or the use cases that they are actually tackling are very like literally on the first level. So they just can't go deep. And probably this would still take, you know, so many years to get it. And because of that, most of the AI applications or solutions that we are seeing are customer facing. So, I mean, regardless of B2B or B2C, but it is just like tackling the data that is already there. So we don't actually go. So, I mean, the number of companies that we actually saw in the Series B and industrial AI, I would say it is pretty low still because, I mean, they just can't crack the market given the fundamental infrastructure issues and basically market situation and also the macroeconomics and the situation probably. I mean, I believe that AI can bring efficiency as well as cost cutting, right? So that is the whole dream that at least we are thinking about it, right? But I don't think the enterprises are actually very ready. I mean, at least my feeling is just like they are happy with what they are having, or they want to do a little test on the basically on the very glimpse of AI to just see, okay, is it delivering that value that we are having, which I don't think would be enough for actually delivering a proper big enterprise company on AI side.
Ceyhun, do you agree with that? I know that, like, for a fact, with some of your customers, I think you have some S&P 500 customers where you, like, do you feel they're like ready to deploy AI, or like how do you think about that?
Yeah, I would like to give some examples from that. So I think the world that we are living is like in this room, like AI, we are like we are following hacker news, we are like reading the news, like we know what is going on. And there's another world out there, which the actual people doing the job, and they're not aware of that, and they're also afraid of it. I mean, it's 2024. There's last week's like we had some sales calls that I joined as for cybersecurity reasons, and there are like questions that has been asked, like, okay, our data is like also there with other people's data in the same computer. Cannot like AI can access them, right? They're like, no, like these are like logically separated instances. But I mean, there's like even the readiness for like the really like the simple kind of things are not there yet. And it's like taking really a lot of time to explain them and tell them that it's not that dangerous. Like everything's fine. We are taking care of it, how we know how to do it. And it's like taking time to really get the people to understand that this is not a threat, but it's actually going to help them. But the outside world is like not developing that fast as is like there is this accelerationism happening here in this room, like people like us. So I think there is still some time for adoption, and I think it will take some time.
Do you think this is also on a technical level? Because I guess what you mentioned is a bit also just on a cultural level, that if I work at a big enterprise, let's say I work at Volkswagen, I need to convince everybody to buy into like trying to automate things now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, like so basically, do you think from a technical side there is basically enough data pipelines, or do you feel the companies need more invest in that before?
I mean, data pipelines, I think it's there. So that's also what we are doing. We are connecting all data sources and then ingest them and make them searchable, usable by the AI. The data is not really the problem. The problem is really this culturally, like getting in there and like actually implementing that. Because there was even like we did a pilot project, for example, there was like people saying that some people didn't want to access it. And some people rioted against the AI kind of and said like, yeah, we don't want that. Please cut my access. I don't want to use that. And then because it was I cannot tell the name, but it's a big company. And there was some kind of like internal conflicts happened just because of that. And they are still going through that to deploy it everywhere, like inside the company right now. But the data is there, pipelines are there. It's just like, there's like some other like problems.
Sven, how do you think about that? I know that like when we were doing the due diligence for LiveEO, one of the things which impressed us the most was kind of your data pipeline. What do you feel were like the biggest challenges you had to kind of overcome to build that in that sense?
So, I mean, we started already in 2018 with the company, so well ahead of the current kind of like frenzy and it also breakthroughs. And so we worked definitely the first couple of years on building out the data pipelines for what that means for us, working with satellite operators, which themselves are very big organizations, they're very small, slow moving, to get the data in the proper format, to then build our own systems to harmonize the data, to put it in such a format that we can reuse it and really scale it, and then obviously apply the AI models to it, which have been developing faster and faster. So it was really a lot of the investment. So always, also that's what I told you in the due diligence process, right? It's not only the AI model, which really is the USP here, which is the IP. It is really like the entire data architecture which we've needed to build to ingest all different kinds of data sets to harmonize them. Because what we are talking about is not text. We're not talking about natural images. We're talking about radar satellite imagery. We're talking about optical multispectral satellite imagery, which comes in slightly different from slightly different operators, with all the impact of clouds, haze, and whatnot you have in the atmosphere. So it was pretty difficult. But yeah, I just want to say that I fully agree with what's been said, right? If we look at technical adoption, we always have to count in the cultural adoption cycles, and then last but not least, budget cycles, and also sales cycles. And if you look at a big selling to a big enterprise customer, then you can like look at 24-month sales cycles if you're talking to a big automotive player, and then you have an adoption cycle of multiple years. So before you really see, well, okay, company ABC has implemented technology XYZ at scale, it takes half a decade. Yeah, so that's just the reality, but we will see it. I have no doubts about that.
And do you think there's like a lot of kind of fine-tuning to be made? So for example, if I think about TextCortex, let's say I'm like a medical researcher and I want to throw like 5,000 medical papers into your solution and then look through them. But I mean, these papers, they will have graphics, they will have data. Can I just throw in the PDFs and then like you are like, I don't know, OCRing them, or like how does this work? Like,
yeah, that's a great question. And actually, this is one of the biggest problems in the industry right now, harmonizing data, because there's PDF, there's Excel, there's Word, blah, blah. There's a lot of stuff, right? There's different file types. And ingesting data from them properly is a problem that we are also trying to solve right now. Just for that, like we also open sourced a project called JSON Doc that we are working on, which is going to harmonize all this into a single data format, like, I don't know, Notion page to PDF to everything. To make this easier, but it's definitely an issue and a problem.
Okay, cool, thanks. And then maybe now, Nazanin, building a bit on what you just said earlier, that you feel that right now the things which are most ripe for kind of disruption is like topics which are a bit more like front-facing, like everything based on LLMs, be it like customer success, be it like code generation, be it like media generation. How do you think about that? Is this like the fields you mainly look into now as an investor, or do you think there is some other more industrial applications which also strike you as interesting?
Having said that, obviously the competition on that side is so fierce. So, for example, one of the topics that I'm specifically looking at it at this very moment is like how HR is going to be disrupted by AI. And then I've met, I think, literally just to make sure, over 25 companies in the last 3 weeks. And then except 24, we're literally having the same angle. So just trying to do the same thing. And then it's so difficult to differentiate within, you know, who is going to be the winner or what's going to be approached, because everybody is just super early. So we are constantly looking at that market and trying to find the outliners. But no, at the same time, on industrial AI, we are still looking for the players. I mean, we are a fund that can, our sweet spot is Series A when you want from 7 to 15 million. So kind of when you got the first PMF, but we also do late seed investment. So even if we see an interesting company, but we are still not sure if they can make it, then we can get in on the next round. But actively looking at the supply chain, like industrial for automotive industry, like a lot of plannings, a lot of predictions, like basically anything that you want a process of industrial, but still the number of players is also not comparable to the other side.
When we were preparing for this panel, you were like stating that basically AI agents in some sense are also just algorithms, which was something I remembered because I think it's kind of true. So maybe how do all of you think about AI agents? I mean, that's definitely a bit of a hype right now, and I think there have been like some startups doing very well, at least on a like seed stage, who are like applying this to sales. What do you think about AI agents in general? Like, do you think they will run into like the same problems we had historically, that then they maybe only work out for 90% of cases and then cannot solve the last 10%? What do you think about that?
I mean, the general applicability. So I mean, AI agents by now are much more generally applicable than they used to be, right? And there will always be use cases which can't be really solved, but that's also true for humans. So just giving you an example, right? We have a sales team, and if you've worked with salespeople, I love salespeople, I love our sales team, but sometimes they say, "Oh, it's so difficult to put all data into the CRM." Yeah, okay, well. And they either don't do it or they don't do it properly. So what we've done is with one of the platforms generated an agent which helped us to directly infuse all information with much higher accuracy. And I'm sure there's like 10% bad data in there, like things which are not 100% accurate or 100% correct, but it's still much better than it used to be. And I think these are the use cases which you're going to see much more adoption. But to the question which also has been floated around earlier, right? Like, what are other applications, or where do you might going to see the implementation of AI agents is just in the way you interface with applications in the industrial space. So we have an application with which field crews can benefit from the insights from satellite data. They have to click a lot of buttons to get what they want to see, and they need to be trained on that, which is unnatural. giving them the ability through implementing an AI agent in our application to just interface via voice with what they would previously potentially have put into an Excel file. They don't really have to relearn any new process, but can benefit from new insights. And I think this is where you're going to see like these language-based AI agents a lot more in the future, because they can definitely solve all these things, all these cases.
Okay, cool. And the application basically right now being like sales and customer success. Ceyhun, what do you think about agents? Like, where do you see them working, where not?
I think they are, as you were mentioning about like for the CRM automation and things like that, this kind of simple things, I think it works really well. And I think for research also it works really good. But in some ways, like I guess like to a point that there is always going to be like a co-pilot need, like there's like someone on your side working together with you while you're making decisions, because like automating it all the time doesn't really work out. That's what we've seen. Therefore, I think that is kind of limited where it can go. I think on the coding task, it's going to be much, much better for coding, because it's like a very, like the definition of success in coding is like very definitive answer. And that's why agents are going to be really, really good there. So it's going to be more agents, pull request reviewers, I don't know, like the ones who are writing code or things like that. This is going to be the standard, I would say. But on other areas, very automated ones, yes, it will be agents. But I think it's also a little bit overhyped. That's what my belief.
I just wanted to add something. So what we are seeing in the AI company, that's very interesting. So for the first time, we see the fastest pace within the AI startups to get to 1 million ARR. So that one was actually something that we focused internally. So the push from the market on the categories that we are discussing, I mean, ChatGPT actually made the whole world understand AI, like as of my dad playing with ChatGPT, talking to it, to all the people that understood, how AI could be. So then the push from the market to try new tools have been very kind of aggressive. So it means like a lot of AI startups are getting to their first product market fit, but then this whole season of AI tourist has happened. I mean, there is this term for it, because the users don't stick to the applications anymore, so they churn. So now, I don't want to name, but one of the very hot startups of Europe, well, we were discussing, right? Yeah. So about the retention issue. So you see all these rounds after round, Series A, Series B, so fast in less than 6 months. But the reality is just like the people are coming with some sort of expectation. I don't know what is that, but kind of an expectation like that this AI is really going to be a game changer. And then they play with it. It's cool, but that is not that North Star that I was looking for. So then they stop using it. And this is actually something that, for example, within EQT, I mean, I personally, rather than betting much earlier, I start seeing a bit more retention, NRR data, like just take time to just see, like before this, like maybe 6 months ago, we were just like, okay, whoever that has passed 1 million ARR has a product market fit. Now I'm actually more towards 2, because I want to see, because these people have just come in the last 6 months and created that 1 million ARR. Now the reality is just like, the question of agents or all the other AI stuff we were discussing with the founder, everybody kind of gets to that 90% of the job done, but the last 10% to actually deliver the final value, make the customer get back to the application and keep on using it, is something that a lot of startups haven't actually figured it out. And that is the part that there was also another article that was saying that within the AI era, there would be much, much more money from the VCs blown up. But the ones that make it, they are going to be basically what we call it at EQT, GDC, generation defining companies. So they're going to be much bigger, or the power law of the VC investment is just going to be turbo power law. But we need to still see who has actually figured out that 10%. So if you are working in AI, AI startups, I would definitely argue, maybe in my own experience on the first couple of years, I didn't really care about retention that much. I mean, I was constantly looking new customers, sign-ups, that like the top of the funnel. But now for keeping basically the route going, I think the VCs are also becoming much more kind of sensitive towards can this startup actually scale rather than B2B or B2C, and keeping the customers and delivering the final value there or not.
Yeah, I can only confirm that basically that we also have this same thinkings at DTCF, and maybe like to dig on this idea that in many cases you have like this 90-10% working. I guess in like if for your CRM 10% of the nodes are faulty or made up, I guess that's like something the salespeople can live with. If like in some quality control for chips, you just miss 10%, that's I guess horrible. Where do you think, like, in which industrial applications do you think like AI and generative AI are like most suited to work?
Is it like a question in the physical world, like a generative AI in the physical world, or industrial applications, or just there?
Whatever you think.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the industrial side of it, right? That's we talked about the software side of it. There's like one thing that I'm really interested is like that's how it's going to transform the like simple blue collar jobs. Let's put it this way, regarding when it comes to you know, like transportation and things like that. I think there's like a massive potential, and we haven't unlocked that yet. And when that happens, it's really going to be a really big change, I would say. But the problem over there is there's the data pipelines that we were talking about previously that doesn't really exist on the physical world, right? We are collecting data all over the web with textual data, but there's not really data collection for physical world. Is there like, and that's an issue, I would say. But I think it's going to be really big if we can solve that. On that side.
Would you, like everyone, say that this issue is mostly like on the training layer? Like, so let's say if I want to train like a foundational model for, let's say, Earth observation, or is it more like on the inference layer that when you then want to deploy some kind of model with a customer, you need the data? I think we talked about one company in the robotics space, one of your portfolio companies at EQT. What kind of challenges do you see there? On which side is it more like inference or training?
Maybe I could take this question. So first of all, like going back to the first question. So what is the trend that we see in here? We are coming from AI action, going to the workflow. Now we are trying to crack workflow and RPAs and stuff like that. And the co-pilot and hopefully autonomous. So this is how we are thinking about the world is going to change, right? I mean, and each step of that, we do have issues. And the question that you asked about sensitive kind of industries to get in. So for example, in the legal AI, I talk to a lot of founders and I see the point. They are all optimizing kind of the repetitive tasks of internal work of the business, creating contract, NDA, this, that. But which is kind of happens to be to 80 to 90% of the lawyers or legal teams internally within the enterprises, surprisingly. But that last 10%, which is very sensitive because you need to have the human reasoning behind it. They still don't want to touch it because they believe their systems are still not very well trained and it's too risky. It does have a lot of complications. The same goes for health tech, stuff like that. So we do have this company, 1X, as one of our portfolio companies. It's a humanoid. It's actually very interesting. So I actually dealt with it for the first time a couple of weeks ago with a basic robot that acts as a human. It's very interesting. So if you look at it, they do have 2 generations. So the first generation of the humanoid, they tried to deploy it in industry. That was very interesting understanding. They realized the training pace of the robot goes like this, but stagnates straight away because the type of task that you do in industry is repetitive, but within one scope. So the robot doesn't learn from specific point on. And the new generation that I actually saw a demo yesterday, I was super amazed, would be released next year, would be the robot that would be helping at the housework. So they realized the robots that would be living with you would get the most context out of the world and would be trained. So would be helping you doing the cooking. Actually, like the pricing model is funny. So we are discussing, is it going to be about folding the clothes or washing the clothes and stuff like that? So it is actually going to come because we are at home living the most of the context of different things. But again, training. So we invested in this company out of UK, just announced vSIM. So they are a simulator company. So they simulate and train the models for the robotics world. So the companies like 1X can actually instead of training their own models, go and use the simulator and similar to vSim companies. So it is actually going to be very interesting to see how these are going to change. But we are expecting, which is actually a funny thing. So we invested in this company a couple of years ago, and now this is the point that the first humanoid is going to be deployed in the real life, and everybody is just like, it's an exciting time, but at the same time, it's a scary time because I mean, you still don't know how these things are going to react. But yeah, so it's still quite a bit of training issues and making them understand to get the context. And again, going back, for example, to software development companies or AI co-pilots or whatever you call it, we just saw the news of Poolside just raising 500 million. But the reality is just like all these co-pilots still are lacking the human reasoning behind it. It could be kind of co-pilot. It could never be autonomous at least at the given stage, because I mean, my personal takeaway is just like the technology is still not able to provide that. Hopefully we will see it in the near.
Yeah, I was actually also with the Poolside. So who doesn't know them? They are like creating code like for programmers, and yeah, they're one of many. I was wondering a bit like when I saw this announcement, how long it will take until you basically have like this virtual programmer, which is just better than any Ceyhun out there. Like what do you think? Like on the one hand side, I'm super excited about it. On the other hand side, I think I would also be a bit scared that we then basically just hand over to the machines. Do you think it's realistic that before 2030 we basically get to a point where like AI in quotes, quote unquote, is just being the better programmer than any machine learning researcher or engineer or data engineer could be? I mean, I think you had still a bit doubts, Nazanin, if I understood this correctly. Like Sven, Ceyhun, what do you think?
About the data you said. Yeah. I haven't doubted the current state of the world, but then when things would change drastically, right?
I mean, I'm a horrible programmer. I could be replaced today. So I think you have to take this question.
Same. No, I mean, I believe that it's, yeah, sometimes like I'm using GitHub Copilot and all kind of tools, of course. I don't code very much. Like in the beginning, I was like doing all-nighters and everything, but not so much anymore. But whenever, for example, I need to try to fix a bug or something, I just like go and like just like very like feeling bad about myself, but I just like go to use AI for doing that most of the time if it's a minor bug, if I need to solve. But I can totally see that this is going to be the first thing that is going to, at least if it's not automated, it's going to be highly AI driven. It's not going to be, maybe it will take some time, as you say, to completely automate it, but on code side, it will be the fastest one, I would say.
Thank you so much. And I could ask so many more questions, but now I also want to give everybody in the audience the opportunity to make this a bit more interactive. And I would suggest that, like who has some more questions for the panel? Like maybe to give, okay, that was very fast. Then I just hand you maybe my microphone.
Yeah, I have a question for the man in the middle. You said that you're doing kind of AI search for for like companies based on their private data. There are many players like this. So how do you actually differentiate yourself?
That's a great question. The thing is, we are doing this for a long time. Like since like 21, we started kind of early. I mean, even back then, like I was training AI models, GPT-2 under my desk, basically, because there was no OpenAI key, for example. Over the time, like we developed our own models, and then it started becoming that like the APIs got so good, then we decided to completely scrap our own models. So it took some adaptation. Yes, you what? No, fine tuning. It was I was talking. We were doing GPT-2 fine tunings. Like it was really long time ago, 2020, so before even the company started. It was like MVP. But to be able to do that, you need to go really, to differentiate, you need to go really deep into integrations. So when you say that, like I'm doing, we are also doing the knowledge-based management, and it's not that easy because like we are talking with the customers since long time, and we understand their needs better than competitors, I suppose. And that is why they're coming to us. And they're like really small nuances, as they say, like devil in the details. So you can connect to a knowledge-based source, like you can connect to a Google Drive or OneDrive, whatever, and ingest all the data. But do you know like how they would like to see the answers to be presented. So for example, one case is like for one of the customers, they bought our software because they can go see the references in detail and what was the reasoning behind it. For example, that is like one small detail that other products didn't have, and they choose us over Microsoft Copilot actually and bought our product. So it becomes like all about like you say integrations, or like you say like there is others in the field doing the same thing, but it's actually not the same thing. When you look really, really deep, then you will start seeing differences. And I think that's how we compete. Otherwise, it's really hard. And the AI space is like getting more and more competitive. And we only raised a pre-seed round like around 2021. Actually, Jonas was also part of that. And we never did it again because like we really talk to the customer, understand their needs, and stay competitive the whole time. Yep. I hope that answers the question.
Like if I can follow up, like how do you compete with Langdoc? Do you know Langdoc? It's like a very similar product to use. How do you compete with Langdoc? It's like a very similar product. They raised 3 million last year also targeting very much German market.
I'm not really, I heard about their name, but like we're not per se like just sitting down and like looking how we're going to compete with them. I believe they're doing okay. I think the pie is big enough for everyone to get something out of that. That's what I see. We raised less than that, by the way. We raised 1.2 million in 2021.
Okay. It was a very nice talk, first of all. Thank you. My question is about AI ethics, basically. And when you specifically talk about the industries and small businesses, small and medium-sized industries, they have mostly a very set amount of USPs. And this is how they are differentiating from their competitors in the industries. And they are doing a very specific thing, and they have private data. You can get their knowledge base and all, but how do you convince them that we have some charter regarding ethics and their data would not be really like shared with their competitors or whatever? So is there any kind of charter or something you guys or any others are working on? I'm not aware of that yet.
I think that's a question to me. Regarding that, we have, of course, terms of service, and we never train data on AI, and we are using AI providers. We also have this kind of agreements with, and that's how we are ensuring that.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, thank you. My question is coming from a computer vision background. My question is more towards the industrial AI, like front face, briefly touched upon the industrial robotics or mobility or logistics. I think you mentioned, Nazanin, briefly that. So I was having a conversation with someone from the same space, and he said to me that that problem is solved. And from your experience, when you meet with some companies or startups, do you think that there can be three options? Is it solved, like really solved and saturated? And second thing is it like slowly adopted because of cultural things that was mentioned before, or is it like technical limitation that is slowing it down? So what would you say on that?
I am not sure if it is solved. I mean, we are still seeing so many different scenarios or use cases that different companies are actually attacking to solve it. But the main question here is just like, obviously, all the companies are starting from one corner, like, I mean, like about logistics, about, I mean, all sorts of optimizing. I don't want to go into details of different scenarios. But then the main question is about what is the vision there? You know, when you ask the founders, what do you want to do next? Because this is just not enough. It is good to create a couple of million of ARR and the others are going to catch up. So are you going to go vertically into specific industry or going deep into the use case of what you're trying to solve, let's say supply chain or logistics or whatsoever? Or you want to go horizontally different within the different industry, and then the question is just like, okay, how can you find a PMF, or what is your GTM motion there, and stuff like that. So Definitely, there are lots of startups that are tackling the first or the second use cases, but the ones that, again, I said, like the number of Series B investments that you would say, okay, in industry, we see a wave of, I don't know what is your experience, Jonas, but we don't really see so many big waves of companies coming into Series B from industrial AI. I mean, they are mainly at seed, some of them Series A, barely Series B. I mean, maybe this year I have technically just seen maybe 2 or 3 Series B industrial AI that completely go into deep industry. So there are not that many, but the first couple of use cases, there are so many that are going after that. But literally the question of, okay, how are you going to differentiate in that market and move to the next step would be the main question.
Thank you.
Thank you. A question for Sven, perhaps. So you mentioned that the cycles are 24 months, that before you see anything in production is half a decade. Is this particular to Europe or to Germany, or is this just all over the world that you see that in industrial applications of AI? Because I think if it's only here, we have a problem, because anywhere else in the world where they are not that slow, they don't catch up fast.
Yeah. So obviously, it's more complicated than what I've explained earlier, right? So maybe explaining where I'm coming from. So there's this book, Crossing the Chasm, right, which like segments adoption of B2C products into different customer profiles or different profiles of people. And there's always early adopters, right, or innovators, right, and they will definitely adopt quicker than 24 months or whatnot. So that's maybe first and foremost really important. But if you look at an entire industry, and we have seen the utility space moving in North America, which we as Europeans would always say, well, they are so innovative. It took them 5 years to go really through a process of, oh, well, that's a new technology. That sounds really useful. Well, maybe we should test it. The innovators tested it. Well, then the next wave of people tested it, and now people are deploying it. It took a couple of years. Now people are doing it. But I don't think that it's a problem of Europe or the US. I think it's a function of general inertia, which is a definition of culture. And then also, as just discussed earlier, a definition of size, right? Size of the organization, right? And so ultimately, I think there is a different culture, but it's different within different countries in Europe or companies within these countries, which ultimately then define how big the inertia is. And I think we jointly, as people operating, working here in Europe, have to work on bringing this inertia down through whatever means, right? Building new institutions which can help to catalyze these changes. So I think that that's a task for all of us to make sure that we are not now waiting 5 years where people and industries, countries already adopted these changes and see the efficiency gains, right? Because ultimately it's all about efficiency gains if you look at the macro and even at the micro at an individual company. So long answer to your question, but no, I don't think it's a problem which is ingrained, but we have in Europe sometimes big companies with a lot of cultural inertia, and yeah, that's something which we have to work with. Yeah.
Okay.
So this might be a little bit of a simple question, but I'm a first-year student and I just came out of school. And in my university, they support the use of AI for our work as long as we specify it. But in my school, they hated it. They were completely against it. They said we wouldn't be learning in this manner. But you mentioned that you felt bad with the debugging, using AI for the debugging. And I'm just wondering for your opinions in the workspace, how important is the use of AI, and do people still learn off of it, or are they just using it like copy paste and getting the answer?
I think that's like quite hard to answer, but I believe that there's like something like this, you know, there was like horse carriages and then the cars came in and some horse carriage people start attacking cars, you know. I mean, it was happening kind of again, like there's like no stopping it. It will happen somehow. I think there will be new learning methods for school to use AI. And also in the workplace, I think that's going to be stuff that we need to answer all together. I mean, I'm also like perplexed, like how this is going to develop, but because like what is going to happen, then you become kind of like an operator. There's something like outputted and then you're looking at reviewing it. I think humans are more going to be in future become like curators of several different outputs, and they're going to look at it. Okay, this is good, this is bad, and then from then on, yeah, I think this is also it's going to change.
Sorry, but so I'm guessing, I just wanted to know from your perspective from that point, since you have successfully started, well, companies or startups or products, and just from that point of view for someone, a newcomer into this industry.
What would you like to learn exactly? I didn't get the question.
The use of AI, if it's something that
you should use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if it comes from them, then you should definitely.
It doesn't matter from
yeah. But I mean, yeah. So this is a super general question, and I think we can maybe in the networking discuss whether we believe that the brain is a muscle, you have to work it. But if you dope an athlete who's very strong already naturally, they will run quicker, they will jump higher. So right, AI might be the doping for the already trained brain, right? That's how I see it, and I hopefully can raise my children like that. But obviously, maybe we discuss this later.
I think that's actually a great last point. I'm not sure if there's any more last super urgent. One last question by Jörg. Okay. And I think then I would suggest that we move on. I can just give you my microphone. After that, I would suggest that we can all network a bit one-on-one and enjoy the coffee and the drinks so that we still have time for that.
Thanks so much. Didn't want to keep you from coffee though. Since we talked so much about overcoming inertia at industrial sort of first mover applicants, could you perhaps just each share one best practice example of like how did the industrial partner look like? What did you do to make the move a little faster? Because I think that's could be interesting for everybody trying to.
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, it's about having a good sales process and being able to form the customer in the way you would like them to be by using sales methodologies which help to scope and understand what value the customer wants to get, MEDPIC and the value framework. But these are more general. To ask or to your question, what I've seen to be a positive example of a company using, so for example, something like a catalyst to accelerate innovation within its own organization, then I take as a positive side example as well as a negative side, the German railway operator, because they had an innovation program, and many companies have innovation program, and most of the time they are really bad and you should never go in them because they are just like, hey, do something for free or for very little money, and then we can say we are very innovative, and you will never get anything out of it, and VCs will gonna ask you, why haven't they renewed? Anyways, back to Deutsche Bahn. So what they've had was an innovation program, but they've set it up more or less like in-house consultants. So these people within the innovation program knew who are the user persona, they knew who are the buying persona, they understood the organization procurement process. And what they've then did is they've searched companies which would potentially solve problems of the German railway operator. And with that, we were able to get from having no company and no product, just an idea, to selling 300,000 euros within 6 months. So there was a really good example. Now, 5 years later, we have a 2 million euros contract with them. But it's like internal procurement hasn't speed up since then. But I would say this is a great example how all companies ultimately could facilitate the adoption of new technologies by implementing such catalysts within their own organization.
A couple of things here. So when we talk to industries that we are doing a DD on a company, lots of them are scared about the issues that the startup didn't necessarily think about it or thoroughly. And one of them is actually being enterprise ready in terms of AI acts or data policy or privacy. So it is not like still there is all certificates or there is a new raise of startups that are coming to actually approve the AI startups for the industry. So that's a one side note. But again, within the companies that are actually have made it within industry, what we see, a lot of them started like one of them was in automotive industry, which was very interesting. So they got connected to the CTO, but the CTO didn't know what these guys are up to. So they started an account with Volkswagen. at 4,000 euros, just literally nothing. And the guy just didn't care. They was just like, okay, I can just let you just be around. And then 4 years later, they're at 4.5 million account with those guys. So just bit by completely changed the pricing through the way when they delivered the value. So kind of just went in as a test phase, kind of, you know, and obviously a lot of other ones are doing all these POCs for free and just trying to get them to understand the hook and the value of the service that is being provided there. So there's, or the other hacking kind of ways, just to going through the door that, yeah, that's all. And also a lot of companies like Hitachi or the others that we talked, they have these CVCs that they would like to enable the access. And another way to actually make sales now, I remember, is going through partners of consultancies that are doing projects. So they are also a good gatekeeper to just access the industry customers.
Yeah, I agree. These are really good answers. I mean, the overcoming inertia, I think it's hard. You really need to do the work and like keep in there, keep hanging in there and talk with them, do a lot of POCs for free also, but it eventually becomes something, but it's like the process inside big companies are, yeah, I don't know about a way to make it faster, but the only thing is to do the work and yeah, stay in there as long as possible.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you have more questions, then like, I mean, they're still here at least for a little while, and then you feel free to just ask them.